what's the most amount of money that company generated in a single year?
450 million.
What's the most amount of money you've made in a single year with your skincare company?
About 5 million.
Wow. And what's the most amount of money you've made in a single year doing security for commercial establishments?
Oh, wow. 10 million.
What's the most amount of money you made in a year at 14 or 15 years old?
I think we generated probably about 200,000 a year.
Wow. This is Palm Beach, home to an estimated 60 billionaires. And today, we're gonna be asking them for career advice. Let's get it. What industry did you pursue a career in?
I owned telephone companies.
What companies did you own?
Oh God, we had a group. We owned 28 telephone companies in 19 states, heavily Midwest and Northeast, pre-cell phone.
When you were running that company, what's the most amount of money that company generated in a single year?
450 million.
Wow. I can't believe it. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
My goodness. Would you suggest people get into that industry nowadays?
No.
No?
No. It's all sell. It's very, very competitive right now. You know, there are certain parts that work. You know, if you've got some skill laying glass cable or something like that, you probably can make some pretty good money. But you don't want to own a phone company.
How'd you get started with your phone company?
That's a good question. One of my partners was a lawyer, and he was in the cable industry, and he said, we ought to do what they're doing in cable and phone, and we said, okay. So we mortgaged our houses and put some money together and started buying phone companies.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. It's such an honor to meet you, and that's awesome. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom with us.
Okay, good
really
luck.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, small question for you. What do you do for a living?
I'm a car dealer.
A car dealer. How'd you get into that industry?
Just a passion of ours.
Passionate about it. Awesome. If you had any advice for someone to look into the car dealership industry, what advice would you give them?
Work hard, follow your dreams, and make a name for yourself.
If you don't mind me asking, are you a part owner in the dealership, or do you own any dealerships?
I am. We've got 14 different dealerships.
If you could teleport back in time and give advice to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Probably would have gotten into this business sooner.
How long did it take you to get into the business?
Been in the business for about 10 years now.
How old were you when you started in the car dealership business?
I was in my 40s.
What did you do before that?
Cable TV and telecommunications.
Quick question for you, man. What do you do for a living?
I am a real estate developer and entrepreneur.
How'd you get into that industry?
I bought a business when I was really young, about 14 years old, and ended up rolling that sale into real estate and started developing commercial and residential properties from there.
Did you say that you bought a business when you were 14 years old?
Yeah, I bought a signed business when I was 14 from my bus driver.
That's very rare to have a business at 14 years old. How did you start your first business at 14 years old?
Well, I bought it from my bus driver. So she was a wonderful lady, and she said, hey, what are you doing this summer? Ended up saying, hey, I'd like to buy your business. Ended up selling it. A couple years later, did really well.
And what's the most amount of money you made in a year at 14 or 15 years old?
Made? I think we generated probably about 200,000.
Wow. And did you have any help with that, or was it just, you at 14 years old, or were people helping you out with that?
No, it's just me. I had a couple employees at some point. They were a big help. Couldn't have done it without them. So can't do anything without a team.
Wow. So what's the most amount of money you've made in a single year?
About 450,000.
Wow. Between work and investments?
No, that's just strictly work.
What piece of advice would you give yourself?
One piece of advice is save more money sooner. Invest sooner as opposed to buying BMWs and flying all over the place. That's one advice I would change. That's why I tell my two sons, start saving early, and they've done that.
How much of your income should you save?
Oh, you got to put aside at least 10-15% bare minimum.
When you were working, what industry were you in?
I was in the printing business. I had clients in Washington, D.C. and New York City. Had to go to New York City twice a month.
If you had any advice for people looking to get into the printing industry nowadays, what advice would you give? And would you even suggest to get into the printing industry nowadays?
I absolutely would not. I got two of my boys grew up with me being in the printing business. The margins are small, the capital investment is great, and the digital world, the online, the internet has changed that industry tremendously. A lot of printing companies, back in the day, there were 75,000 printing companies in the United States. Now there's probably like 25,000. So it's not a great industry, in my opinion, to be in, but it's still a needed industry in this country.
Well, I really appreciate it.
How'd I do, all right?
Incredible. So what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm actually retired. Had a business for 35 years
Oh, and what industry was your business in?
in security, doing security for commercial establishments.
And what's the most amount of money you've made in a single year doing security for commercial establishments?
Oh, wow. 10 million, something like that.
Wow, that's significant. What would you recommend for someone looking to get started in your industry?
Well, I guess find a niche. Know that there's a need for everything, and you just take it from there and grow from there. So it's
If you could go back in time and give advice to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give?
wow, don't give up. Because there's tough times in front of you. I ended up, making it, but I had to make it hard. So just don't give up. Just keep pursuing it. It turns out in the end, it really does.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So if you could go back in time and you could give any piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give?
I would say work harder in school, be more focused on my studies.
Makes sense. And are you a business owner?
I am. I own a skincare company called Millionaire. I started it in my late 20s, and it's based on my research and background in cellular biology.
Wow. What's the most amount of money you've made in a single year with your skincare company?
About 5 million.
Wow. When you started your skincare company, how old were you?
Let's see, how old was I? I think I must have been 27 or 28, I think. I'm trying to remember.
And when someone's thinking about starting a company, they have it might be hard for them to fund it. How were you able to fund your company when you started it?
When I was first starting out, it was by going to the racetrack and betting on horses. So that's how I was able to do it, but I would say maybe for most people just get a part-time job. But that was my part-time job.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
How much money have you made betting on horses at the racetrack?
Over the last, I've been doing it since I've been like 10 years old, so maybe over that 25 years, maybe about $500,000.
In closing, if you had to give any advice to anyone who's in their 20s that's maybe thinking about starting an e-commerce company or getting into the skincare industry, what advice would you leave them with?
Well, I would say in order to be successful in business, you have to find a niche and you have to do something that you're good at.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you could go back in time and give advice to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Trust Jesus all the way. No holdout from it. It's all true, and he's coming back soon.
What do you do for a living?
Just work in human resources.
In human resources. Do you think that being a Christian and working in human resources works well together?
No, I think most companies are not consistent with what the scriptures teach.
For everyone watching, do you have any Bible verses that you would recommend?
I love the Gospel of John. Read Genesis 1 and realize that it's literal and it's not just figurative language. And read the John 21:25 and realize that God is probably a lot bigger than you've been thinking.
Awesome. If you guys want to watch more of these videos, just click somewhere on the screen and you'll be able to watch more. Comment who your favorite interview was, and if you liked the video, leave a like. It helps a lot. See you guys in the next one. Peace.